Thinking about launching a podcast but overwhelmed by all the moving parts? At TurnKey Podcast Productions, we take the hassle out of podcasting so you can focus on the talk, not the tech. From concept to launch, guest booking to post-production, we handle everything. Need a strategy to grow your show and turn guests into clients? Yep, we do that too. DIY or done for you, we've got the solution that fits. Whether you're just getting started or ready to scale, TurnKey is your behind-the-scenes podcast team. TurnKey Podcast Productions. Your voice, your message, fully produced. Learn more at turnkeypodcast.com/contact. That's turnkeypodcast.com/contact.
Next on this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
At that moment, it kind of crystallized to me the motivation of so many people.
Yeah.
We live with our dreams. We want our dreams to come true. We work hard in our jobs to make our dreams come true. We have dreams of our children, dreams of our family, dreams of our lives.
Right.
And we make so many decisions predicated on our thoughts and dreams and emotions of what we do. And being able to cultivate a skill to be able to help people have their dreams come to fruition gives everybody a fuller life.
You may have seen a housefly or maybe even a superfly, but you've never seen the Nice Guys on Business fly. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, Nice Guy Community. It's Doug here, and today is a kind of, we're going to talk to Bob. Bob is an entrepreneur who makes you wonder if there's anything that he hasn't done. Bob Campana is his name. He's a California builder. He is a landscape designer. He's a real estate developer, a restaurateur. He's a pilot and a world traveler. And now he's an author. Don't Look Down. It's a fast-paced, funny, and surprisingly heartfelt look at life built on grit, curiosity, and an occasional leap of faith from a very high place. Now, Bob's story takes us from the redwood hot tubs to helicopters, from business flops to big wins, and everything in between. Along the way, he dishes out the kind of hard-earned wisdom that only comes from doing the work. He's got his 10,000 plus hours of practice, so he is an expert at this. Stay the course is his mantra, adapt to change, and never stop moving towards your vision. I'm excited to talk to him. Bob, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
I am so honored that you are interviewing me today, a humble little guy that basically eked out a meager living out here on the sunny West Coast. But thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I hope I can add up to 1/10 of that introduction. That's like, wow, I want to meet that guy.
Well, you've lived this life of I mean, everybody lives their journey, but you have worked your journey, you've walked the walk, you've talked the talk, and you've gotten there. What if I know it's hard to boil this all down into a couple of sentences, but give me the biggest flop that you went through, because I want to start with the flops. Do you remember any? I'm sure there was a bunch of them.
I could tell you one that was a situation that just occurred to me a couple years ago.
Okay.
So I've got my Redwood Cafe. We'll travel back to that. And I built this extremely successful restaurant in Modesto, California. There was an outlier. It was just doing fantastic. And I had people coming to me wanting me to build another restaurant in their place, but another market.
Right.
And this guy about 25, 30 miles away kept bugging me. Oh man, I want you to do it. And I read this book by Danny Mayer, who did Shake Shack and all of that. And he ran his restaurant for 21 years before he decided to go to a second location.
You got to get it down right. You got to get it right.
He wanted it just dialed in, right?
Right.
So like I'm into this restaurant probably like 8-10 years, but it's doing fantastic. And this guy and he's got this building that is absolutely so cool. It's like a brick building, and he had bought this building, and it had an outside area, and I fell in love with the building, and I basically made a 50-50 partnership. Mistake number one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because nobody can make a decision.
That
No
was
decisions.
and it was just, let's just go 50-50. And he hires his lawyer. I go, what? He talked me into doing this restaurant. And I basically told him, I'm not going to invest I'll invest time. I'll design it. I'll build it, but I'm not going to have a monthly rent check. I'm not going to pay a stroke every month. I go, if you want me to do it, we'll go in partners on this. As the landlord, you can have your money out of the rent of the profits, not out of whatever. So we make this deal, but it was 50-50. It was a bad. I've probably written 5,000 or 8,000 contracts with people where I basically sold them a swimming pool or a house or whatever it might be. And I make an agreement with this guy that I'm going to do this project, and I dig into it. Into about, I would say 4 or 5 weeks, it becomes apparent to me that him and his wife are 100% total narcissists.
I just want to make sure I got this clear. This is the business that the guy kept hounding you to help him start his own.
I'm building a new restaurant under my brand.
Got it.
In his building.
Got it. Okay, this is
He's
the guy
paying the money.
Got it.
But I've dealt with a lot of difficult people before, but I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but I've never really had a business relationship with what would be categorically a true narcissistic personality.
Well, what would you say? How did you, I mean, look, hindsight's 2020. How did you not spot that going into
That's the thing about these narcissists. It's kind of like Charlotte's Web kind of thing. It was like he was so nice. I had built a pool for this guy like 20 years ago, and I kind of knew what he was about, and he was a business guy, but I never really owned in on an interpersonal relationship with him or had it a period of time. Okay. And I never really had a narcissistic involvement. I never really knew what that was. So basically, I have this contract that I made with him. I told him, look, I'm not going to work past 70, so you're going to buy the restaurant out or whatever. I'll design it. I put like 8.5, 9 months of me physically working with crews, building out this restaurant, designing stuff. It absolutely was fucking gorgeous. Put the management team together, put everything dialed in, got it all done. I took my chef, I brought him over there. I was toggling the chef back and forth, getting the menus dialed in and all of that. Make a long story short, he stole my chef. And we had a dissolution of the business, and I'm in arbitration to basically clear the decks with this guy. And I should have never even done it, but I was enticed by, a new challenge. I can do all this and everything. I was kind of like clouded. It was like,
all right, so
it cost me way over $1 million in my time and energy and everything.
Okay, so you had shiny object syndrome because you had built this.
Is that what you call it?
Well, I'm trying to figure out. Okay, what was the lesson that you learned in this?
The lesson that I learned is that if you're going to go into and here's the problem. I hadn't gone into a lot of business with a lot of other people. I'm always kind of doing my own thing, Right. So then like to go into partnership with somebody, you really need to investigate what that relationship is. And there has to be a controlling partner. There cannot be a 50-50 Mexican standoff situation.
Got it.
And so that was kind of like the lesson is if you go into business with somebody, let somebody be the controlling partner, whether it's you or the other one, doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. It's just that somebody is.
So you were dealing with a narcissist and his narcissistic spouse in the particular case that you were dealing with there. If he was a 51% owner and you were the 49, how would that have benefited you, or how would you have?
No, it wouldn't have benefited me as much as it would have put it into a situation where I could have just said, you're in charge. You're making these decisions. You're not doing what we are. I'm going to basically bail out of this situation.
Got it.
But
it's,
Okay.
All right. So you didn't have a positive experience there. Maybe know a little bit about your partners before you get in bed with them. There is a lesson learned there. Okay. So that's a good flop. I
learned that lesson at 65.
I got it. And what's interesting about it is, so you're a guy that is it okay if I share your age with our community? Because share that. Okay. Of course. So you're 71 years old.
Yeah.
You, at what point do you say, and I've done in doing research, I've discovered these amazing amount of successes that you've had in your life. At what point does a 71-year-old say, I have enough? I don't need to do any more. I'm just going to enjoy what I'm doing right now and sit back and watch my legacy unfold because of what I've been able to create over the previous 50 years of working.
Well, I think it's like a habit like anything else. It's like this is the juice of life. I enjoy challenges. I enjoy learning. I enjoy knowing what I don't know and learning what I don't know. And that is not going to be able to happen with that description you just made.
I got it.
So I have to be involved in challenges to keep my brain going. And then I have to have a positive effect on people's lives, and that gives me energy. And I think that human connection that I talked to you about a little bit previously, I've kind of gravitated towards that is like where I'm at right now. I'm really into making connections with people. That's why I wrote the book, so that I could basically share with my grandchildren initially who I was as a person. But as we built the book, we found out there might be a larger audience to what my life was about and what I have done. But I would say primarily when you look at the interconnection with people and technology today. Now I'm talking to you I'm looking at a camera. I've got a microphone in front of me. I have never done business that way.
Right.
Okay. My business has always been face to face across the kitchen table with a husband and a wife, or in my restaurants where I'm talking to people. And I find that human connection is such a valuable thing to my life and how I can enrich other people with it. And I think that's a missing component with the technology to now, where actual interpersonal face-to-face relationships are harder and harder to nurture into a meaningful relationship. And I find that my skill, being able to do that as I travel through life, is something that gives me great joy, and it gives other people joy too, because they're honored with my just like you're doing all these interviews, you're meeting all these interesting people, and you are making a difference in the world by sharing other people's experiences via technology. And I wanted to jump on that bandwagon for a while, I guess.
I love the idea of making all of these connections. I think I was explaining to you right before I hit record, in the 1,700 episodes that we have done, 1,000 or 11 or 1,200, whatever interviews that I've done, I've developed so many great relationships with people that have gone so far beyond podcasting. It's not just about doing the interview. I always like what happens after the interview. I fall in love with every guest that comes on the show, or many guests that come on the show. And I enjoy figuring out there's got to be something that we can do together, whether it's somebody that is selling financial products and I really like their product and I become a client, or I bought into some commercial real estate from a guest that was sitting in my show that became a client, that then I ended up buying 4 or 5 properties. I'm working on the 5th one right now, commercial properties back on the East Coast. These are things that could not have happened had it not been for the interview and the podcast, but more importantly, that human connection that I've been able to make with people directly through this medium called podcasting, just in doing this interview. If you could weave some, go ahead. Go ahead.
But what you're saying is exactly, it's a skill that's been practiced through 1,700 interviews, where this skill benefits both parties in a great way. And you're sharing that skill. Now you're basically bringing me into that world. You're interviewing me about my book and so forth. But as time goes on, we're going to form a relationship that's more involved than you would in an ordinary conversation. And I think those podcast vehicle brings that out.
I agree with you. And you can look at it either chicken or egg. What came first, the conversation or the desire to make the human connection? And I always feel like I wrote a book back in 2015 called Nice Guys Finish First, because I really do believe that you can better your business through bettering your relationships with people. And the podcast was a way to promote the book. And I felt like, okay, well, what's my agenda with the podcast? And there really doesn't have to be an agenda with the podcast, because my agenda in life is to make connections. Isn't that really what it's all about? Is all of those, the common bond I was going to ask you, or the common thing that you could weave throughout all of your successes, I would assume would have to be the human element, the soft skills that you've brought to each of those businesses. Is that right?
Unquestionable. And I don't think it's spoken about enough, because when we talk about sales trainers, like me, trust me, I want to form a relationship with you, so you'll basically interact and make a transaction with me or whatever, and that transaction goes through a familiarity and a trust that's built out over, in some cases, a longer sales cycle, or some cases a short one. But at the end of the day, that human connection and that skill of being able to connect, and my observation as I travel the world lately is how technology, I don't care if I'm in Germany, Italy, Vietnam, Australia, the Outback, it doesn't matter. People have their faces in their freaking phone.
Right.
And the inner relationship with people is when, now I'm 71. So like most of my business career did not have tech.
Right.
It didn't have social media. It didn't have all of these different issues. So I'm 70 years old and I start a YouTube channel. What's that all about? But so at any rate, the human connection is fostered through interpersonal contact with people, and then you being truly interested in the other person. You truly wanted to learn what that person's life is about, what that person is about. And instead of talking about yourself as much, being a better listener and listening to those people. And when you make that connection with people, it enriches your life far better than it would ever of talking about yourself.
When I was watching some of your YouTube videos, you have one that's like 7 hours long. I think it's a live stream of you guys doing some work in your shop on the restaurant, right? And
7 hours.
it was a really long video. I was just kind of scanning through it to see, and I'm curious, and maybe you can help me with this, because I know there's a number of people that are in our audience that are entrepreneurs as well, and they're in the process of either scaling to build their business greater than the one person that they are, to a team of 2 or a team of 5 or a team of 10. When you're interviewing people and when you're talking to people about taking the next step in their journey by joining your team, what are some of the things that you like to know about people when you're in? I don't see you sitting across the table from somebody and doing the traditional IBM interview. I see you more of let's have a heart-to-heart converation about what you do. Tell me about that.
In my particular case, right now, the people that I hire or am involved with are in 2 industries. One is the international travel industry, and guides and people that will take my guests on experiences. And then the other people are in my restaurants and the front of the house, back of the house people. In the restaurant, as an example, if I'm going into someone that's going to be in the kitchen and they're going to be working in the culinary area, well, I need to know that they've got the background. Yeah. So I've got to interview them in that regard. But then I also have to know that their personality is one that will work in a team and is not an independent person. So I'll interview and I'll have them kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with the sales trader, Tom Hopkins.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah. So I will just control with questions. I'll just ask a question. I'll listen to their response, and then I'll kind of guide it through. And what I'm really looking for is, can this person think on their feet, and can they fill that position that I'm looking through the answers to those questions? And then I'm going to get a vibe about it. Right. I feel good about it. I had this one guy that I don't know if I told it in the book or not, but this friend of mine is named Donnie Monaco. He's lived an amazing life, built this fantastic glass company. And he would interview people and in the day, and he goes, well, so what I do is I conduct the interview, and I'd have a feeling if I thought I might want to hire this person or not. And if I thought I might want to hire him, I'd walk them out to their car. Mm-hmm. And when he walked them out to the car, he thanked them about coming to the interview. But what he was doing was inspecting their car. If their car looked like they just spent the weekend in it, and there was like, wrappers and how we throw our cup in the floor and the floorboard and all of that, he goes, that person didn't get hired.
Messy life.
He goes, but they didn't. A messy life is going to be, but if they were clean and fastidious, he goes, I gave him the job when I opened the door for him on the car.
It's amazing.
And I think if we can get into that kind of an interview process where we can find out what their mannerisms are or where they're going to be, and I always try and hire strictly on their personality, because I can train them the skill. The skills what I need. I need to know that personality is amiable and they're a people person, especially in hospitality.
I love that you said that. And I feel the same way. You can tell a lot by a person by the way, the condition that they keep the interior of their car. Look, you can have a car. I have a handful of cars. I'm a collector of old Ford trucks and an old Ford Mustang. And
Okay.
as old and raggedy as the outside will look, you open up the hood or you go into the interior and you're going to see 100% spotless environment in my world, because I really do feel like a cluttered car, it leads to a cluttered mind. Now you may not agree if you're in our nice guy community.
I completely agree. I'm looking at you. Your pictures are balanced on the wall. They're the same size. Everything's in order there. There's already a regiment going on just in your organization on your screen on the podcast. You can tell you're an orderly individual.
Well, but there is a contrast to that where you have somebody, I need someone in my life that to a degree has, in my mind, a disorganized mess going on, because those tend to be the people that get stuff done. They're like, I don't give a shit about the interior of my car. I was busy trying to make sure that this deal closed or this something happened. And but that's just not me.
Damn it. You're so true. That's the balance. That's so true, because the creatives and the people that are in my business journey, I sold one of my companies and I bought a plumbing service business. Mm-hmm. This business did like emergency repairs on like water heaters, plumbing problem, backed up sewer, all of that. You have a certain type of a personality that's going to be a plumber. Mm-hmm. Okay, the guy's got to get his hand dirty, he's got to be mechanical, he's got to do all of that. But at the same time, to sell the plumbing jobs and everything, you want to have somebody that doesn't look like he just got through crawling out from doing an engine transfer. So trying to meet that clean, here I am knocking at your door. Hi, I'm John. I'm here to solve your problem. Oh, look at this guy. He's got a great uniform on. He's clean. He's pressed. Come on in the house, buddy. Trying to find, and then to have that dichotomy of a personality, keep their van clean. Right. Keep we'd have to basically take, every other day or in the morning, we'd have to have van inspection, have to go out, open the frickin' doors, look in the van, so they understood that part of being life is being fastidious. And you would not imagine the rat's nest that these guys could manufacture in 2 days in these vehicles. Unbelievable.
I had an opportunity in my life. You mentioned Tom Peters and Tom Hopkins. Tom Hopkins that's out there.
And Tom Peters.
Yep. I've had a great opportunity to become acquaintances with Zig Ziglar's son and Brian Tracy's son. I'm the son of Dave Sandler. He was the guy that created Sandler Sales. And so I had this wonderful opportunity to meet all of these people, Jeffrey Gittimer, just guys that are like,
gosh, you're bringing names back. Every one of those. Jeffrey Gittimer, fantastic trainer. Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Tom Peters. Those were my students. I mean, those were my teachers.
Right.
I was listening to their audio books. I was listening to their tapes. I was reading their books in my career, going up. Brian Tracy, the negotiations guy. Who was that negotiation guy? I just love that. At any rate, I'll think of it in a minute.
Well, those old trainers, those skills, they really spent so little time talking about technical skills, learning your product. Yes, you must know your product. You've got to know that. But what it came down to, my dad used to share the story all the time. The old lady walks into Sears and she starts talking about needing a heater, and the new sales guy that's on the floor takes her over to the heaters and start talking BTUs and flame power and all of this other stuff. And he's getting done with his 20-minute presentation to the woman, asking her at the end of the presentation, "Ma'am, do you have any questions?" Knowing that she couldn't possibly have a question because he said everything there is to know about that heater. Yeah, because I just have one question, sir, and I appreciate you sharing all of that great information about the heater, but can the heater keep an old lady warm? That's all she wanted to know. She didn't need all that other information.
No.
These guys.
That was the human connection of being able to find out what was the motivation of the purchase.
Right, exactly. So you listen to these stories, and these amazing trainers talk about the features and benefits, and what they really want to do is they're really talking about you need to build that human connection with somebody, or you'll never gain their trust. They'll never make a sale. They'll never buy any product that you have. Maybe you're going to stumble into a lucky sale every now and again because somebody must have the product or service. But it is all about that human element, and we've already mentioned that.
And I think it's
today.
a secret sauce of business that's not discussed as much as it should be. And I think that the human connection, you do business with people you like, you do business with people you have proximity with,
right.
And you do people that you have some kind of a connection with, that you feel trust, that you're able to part with your hard-earned money, or you feel that they can provide the service or task that you need to be done through your inner feeling to make that decision to go forward. And people that focus on the human connection, as I went in my business career, I learned more and more and more about it. I told a story to a podcast that I just did that I had remembered that about when I was in the pool business, and I was selling swimming pools to families, and it was usually across the table, husband and wife. And I learned fairly early the motivation of why they were buying the pool. They were buying the pool because they had a dream about a barbecue, about photo moments for their children, cannonballing in the pool,
right.
And having fun and laughing, family get together. So my competitors would do the cost benefit analysis sale process, and I would do the dream presentation,
right,
where I would basically fill their dream and do their design. And that was so much more profitable for me. I was selling these jobs like 20, 30,000 more than the competing bids, but I had captured their dream and their imagination as to what they wanted to do. And it was crystallized to me in a story that I'd like to share with you right
Please.
now. I was doing a job for an elderly couple. We were in the custom pool landscape design business at that time, and I would go out on these appointments, and I met these people that were building, I mean, this gorgeous, like 7,000 square foot colonial mansion,
right?
All of these beautiful Anderson wood windows. I mean, it was like beautiful. And I get over there, and they're like in their mid 70s. And I'm kind of going, people that age are usually not taking on a project like that,
right?
Building like a 7,000 square foot house. So they had just gotten delivered. I'm saying this was 25 years ago. It must have been $100,000 or more of Anderson windows and doors. And they had this beautiful dining room where they had these French doors that were going to open up into the dining room. And I'm talking to her and her husband about the pool. And there's this one carpenter guy working there while we were having this conversation. And she goes, the lady goes to me, such a sweet lady. You know the lady. She had a sweater on. There was a little gold clip on holding her sweater over her shoulders. Really, her hair was white, but kind of like a blue tint to it.
Right.
That going on, and she's got the horn rimmed glasses, and she walks over to the guy. And she goes, excuse me, but me and my husband were walking around with our tape measure. You would find that everybody that's building a custom home, all of a sudden that's their tool, the tape measure. So she's walking over with the tape measure, and she goes, we measured the opening for the French doors going into our dining room, and the frame is cattywampus. It's not quite square up. Could you straighten that for us, please, when they go to put the doors in next week? He goes, sure, no problem. So we hear this conversation, and then she turns around and walks away, and we're back talking for a minute. And this guy walks over with like an 8-pound sledgehammer and proceeds to just like whack this board. Like, it just startled us.
Right.
I mean, it was just like, what the hell? He just like, wham, he just whacks it. She turns around and walks over to him, and she goes, looks right in his face, and she goes, you are stealing my dream. and at that moment, it kind of crystallized to me the motivation of so many people.
Yeah.
We live with our dreams. We want our dreams to come true. We work hard in our jobs to make our dreams come true. We have dreams of our children, dreams of our family, dreams of our lives.
Right.
And we make so many decisions predicated on our thoughts and dreams and emotions of what we do, and being able to cultivate a skill to be able to help people have their dreams come to fruition gives everybody a fuller life.
So what would you say when you said that that he was stealing, or when she said to him, "You're stealing my dream"? Is it because he was
not respecting your property?
I got it.
He was just like he should have finessed it and basically adjusted it with love and skill.
I got it.
And he did it like with no respect.
Understood. I wasn't 100% sure. Sometimes dreams can get messy, and sometimes you don't want to know how the sausage is made. Maybe he should have said, "Hey, there's going to be some mess that's going on to fix the error that my teammate had created. Can I ask you to excuse yourself so I don't crush your dream?" He didn't realize that was her dream. He was just doing his job. Right?
Yeah. Well, I think that it was kind of like a bull in a china closet thing.
Yes.
If you're building a beautiful custom home, carpentry is a skill too. It's not usually practiced with a sledgehammer.
No, I understand. I've seen. It's interesting in all of the time that I've watched these YouTube videos that I've been educating myself about on how to restore your car or how to rebuild an engine or a transmission. It's very rare that you have somebody that has to take a sledgehammer to something. They do have to finesse these old cars.
But that's why you're watching these people, because they're professionals and they know how to do what you don't know. Right. I mean, the world of YouTube is so wonderful in that respect, because and those YouTube people that made that YouTube about restoring that car, they love that car.
Absolutely.
That's why they made that video.
No doubt. So you've had all of these great adventures that you've tied together in your journey from where you started to where you are now. In the very early stages, was there an inspiration that kind of got your wheels under you? Were you the child of a highly motivated, highly inspiring set of parents? Were you somebody that just had a mentor that kind of helped you see the light? What was it that helped you gain this valuable insight at the very beginning that you've carried through your entire life?
Well, in the book, I talk about when I was 21 years old, I took a trip around the world. And I spent many, many months, probably 6 months or so, and I had never left California. Mm-hmm. And now I am in tropical beaches in Indonesia. I'm in Hong Kong. I'm walking inside of Tokyo. I went to India. I saw tremendous wealth and I saw tremendous poverty that I had never seen in my country. I saw death. I'd never seen a dead person before. I saw a person swirling around dead in an eddy in a river in India. I mean, so I came back to America. I'm 21 years old. I've got a backpack on. I walking across the bridge on the Bayshore Freeway in San Francisco as I just got back from this world trip, and I saw this sea of cars with one person in it. Mm-hmm. What America, the wealth that my country had, that moment I said, I am not going to squander what America offers its citizens. The right for self-determination. By the grace of God, I was born in America, and I am going to start my own business, and I'm going to make my way in that regard. I can remember the time. I can remember exactly what happened. Now, I was completely naive as to what that statement meant. I had no clue as to what journey it would take me on. My father was a small business person. I came and I announced to that when I came back. He looked at me like I was batshit crazy. He goes, "You have no idea what the F you are talking about here."
Right.
I went on that journey through total blind faith. And I think because my father was a successful small business person, but he did not encourage me to do it because he knew how hard of a life it was. Yeah. He never went to college. He wanted me to go to college. He wanted me to be a doctor, a lawyer, or some kind of thing like that. I was not a college material person. I never went to college. I went to college for 2 months. And I basically would attribute my journey through fear of failure. I was in my era, when I grew up, there was shame, there was embarrassment. I mean, if you went out and did something and you failed at it, it was embarrassing. I mean, you didn't want to carry that. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, was the fear of failure and determination. And it's kind of like a weird thing. If you have a foil, somebody that you want to prove something to, whatever it might be,
right.
it's a real motivating factor. And that foil was my dad thinking that I would never be able to freaking make it.
Wow.
He goes, yeah, because look, I was like a typical teenager, irresponsible, doing radical stuff, going out, doing a little more drinking than you probably should or whatever. And now I make an announcement after I went on this 8-month hippie journey across the world that I'm going to be a business guy. He's going, I don't know, this is going to work. But it did. It worked well.
So tell me about how about today? Bring it to present day. Behind every successful business person, there's usually a partner or a spouse or significant other.
For sure. I've had business partners, but my life journey has been through my wife. I didn't marry until I was about 28. And we've had 4 beautiful daughters. And those daughters, one of the ingredients, I have 4 college. I had this one guy tell me one time, he goes, do you know that Ernest Gallo, that's one of the biggest companies in our area, is E&J Gallo Winery.
Right.
Ernest Gallo has 21 law degrees.
Okay.
I go, are you kidding me? He hired every one of them. So the thing, so that kind of like, okay, you can hire what you don't have, but what you can learn with and whatever. So I paid for 4 college educations, even though I don't have a college education. Mm-hmm. We gave my daughters a start in life with no debt. So I'm very proud of that. Yeah. My wife and I did that. I was basically, in so many regards, consumed by the business. I didn't learn a lot of time-saving techniques earlier in my career. So I was gone a lot. I worked 7 days a week for many, many, many years. My wife raised our children. And then it got to a point where if you can't do it in 6, you're not going to do it in 7. I took Sundays off. Then I started taking Saturdays off. But the nature of the business, in particular, the pool business, was the families were home on the weekend and they could basically do that. So that was the day they had to work. And then the kids were in school during the week. So you just had to work, So that's just like the way it was.
What do you do? What part of your day to day do you enjoy the most now? Now that you have a little less pressure as it relates to, I need to be able to pay my bills. Your bills are being paid.
Oh yeah, that was years ago. That went away.
So what is it about today that you really enjoy, like your everyday?
The creativity. I mean, you mentioned the shop. So I don't know how far we want to go in this conversation, but I'm building so like. The data to answer that question, I have a shop at my house that I construct unique pieces for my restaurants. Mm-hmm. So we build tables, chairs, light fixtures, chandeliers, all types of, and I have 2 metal fabricators and I have 3 woodworkers that I basically assign work to. And if you go on, on that shop, on that video, you're going to start seeing some of these beautiful things.
Yeah.
So like when I went on the pool business, I sold over 5,000 swimming pools myself on over the face-to-face, over the table sales. And those sales were from anywhere from $30,000 to $750,000 of projects. Mm-hmm. And I went to all of these different homes and I would meet these people and they hired their landscape designers. They hired their home designers. They hired all this. So I saw so much of that design. And then from World Travels, I saw that. I really, really enjoy creation, the creative process. And I enjoy the creative process of making something which I call nonverbal communication. Mm. And that nonverbal communication is a way that you can create quality, you can create a feeling through a physical object or through a space that you can create that gives people pleasure and joy. And that's what I do in hospitality. Then I do that from a standpoint of creating these environments that are unique and different, where they're not going to go into a space that I create and see anything that could be bought in a big box store or something like that. And that creative process of interconnecting those things where they make sense is fun.
So that's the stuff that you love. It sounds like
the
the creative stuff that you love.
I couldn't build a shoebox. Right. I can think about it.
Right.
And I have people that do it for me, but I am not the trade person. I'm not the craft person.
It sounds like you may not find yourself excelling in an environment where, let's say, you were a franchise owner, where you were stuck in the regiment of a system that has worked. Or maybe I'm wrong. Is that something that you find that you could do?
Well, I one of the more interesting books is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. I'm sure you're totally familiar with it. The systemization of process, and also Elon Gobran, the goal, and being able to create a process. A part of me, you have to have that if you're going to have order. If you can't be off the reservation that much.
Right.
But for example, buying a franchise is buying the system. You're buying the predetermined decisions that somebody has made that are going to have a predetermined outcome that's going to give you success, and that's why you're forking over the money for it.
Well, I guess it could be something like a budget to some people is restriction. For me, a budget is freedom, because now I'm within the confines of the budget, where I know I have X amount of dollars that I can spend on food, or X amount of dollars that I can spend on entertainment or travel or whatever it is. Some people look at that and say, well, I can only spend. And I'm like, no, I get to spend this. So, and if I don't spend it, I can carry it over to the next month. Sometimes I think about, I don't know how well I would do in a franchise environment, because I always feel like I've spent 40 plus years of my life self-employed. I'm unemployable. I don't know who would want to hire me. I'm good as a partner, but I'm not great as an employee.
So relate to that. I so relate to that statement, because the thing is, I don't know that I would be employable. I don't know. I'm a kind of like a cowboy at reservation. I'm an outlier. You're an outlier to a certain degree, but at the other time, that's what makes our lives interesting. I guess on the franchise thing, I would probably not buy a franchise, because I'd find it too restrictive and then I would basically be looking at the system and saying, how can I improve it? But they don't want, a franchise doesn't want to hear, you're going to improve it. We already did that. That's not your job, buddy. Your job is to just carry out the drill. So I probably wouldn't work in that regard, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for replicatable business processes. So I have a very high respect for that.
Let's talk about the book, Don't Look Down, The Improbable Adventures and Battle-Tested Lessons of a Serial Entrepreneur. As of the recording of this, it just came out a week ago on the 14th, I believe, of October 2025. If you're listening to this in 2026 and beyond, obviously the book is still out. We'll put a link in the show notes for that. What was the motivation behind the desire? What was the desire to write the book to help a grand amount of people that you couldn't reach in your everyday world, or just to put your legacy into words?
Initially it was basically to put my legacy into words for my grandchildren. As you read and as you learn and you go through life, when they put me in the ground, 60 days after I'm dead, very few people will even mention my name. 6 months after it, they don't remember who the hell you were, whatever it is. And, everything that I have now, somebody could be driving my car, somebody could be living in my house, somebody doing all that. And I go, I wanted my grandkids to know what my life experience was like and who what their history was about. So that was the initial motivation. So then, and I don't know about you, but I don't sit there on a regular basis and reflect on what I was doing at 16, 18, 22, 30, 35, and to revisit that and to go back. That was an interesting exercise.
Yeah.
Okay. To go through that.
Right.
So then when I did that and through that exercise, at that point is where it gets to meeting you and get to meeting all these other people, because my helper writer that was helping me document this said, "This is a pretty interesting story, Bob. I mean, you've done a lot of cool stuff. I think we should submit it to a publisher And I'm going, yeah, okay, right. You hear these stories about people going out and trying to find somebody to publish a book for like years on end. And then finally, after 35 publishers, somebody basically decided to take a risk on it. And oh, and behold, it was the fucking Thornbirds. It's like,
right. Harry Potter in there somewhere.
Exactly. So like I figured, well, go ahead, do whatever the hell you're going to do. Well, they came back in a week and said, we think you have an interesting story. We think we should publish your book.
I love that. I love that. It does. I mean, not to take away anything from anyone finding a publisher that's out there. Today, it's a lot easier than it used to be when, Random House was basically a handful of publishing houses were out there. They didn't really care if you had a big community or not. A lot of the publishers nowadays, they not only will take your book, but they also will take your community because they want to know, how many people do you come into this publishing house with? It is a little bit more palatable nowadays to go out there and find a publisher. There's a lot of publishers that are willing to publish your book, especially if you have a community, especially if you have an interesting story, which obviously you do. And the process is very unique, very interesting to go through.
I love it. I mean, it's so learning experience. No idea about it. Meeting you, meeting other people. Meeting the publishers and how that whole process works. It's a whole industry. It's an eye-opening what it takes to write a book. It's so much work. I would never have thought about that being in that regard. Yeah, it was like a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I respect anybody that's got a book on the shelves. They've done a lot of work.
And writing the book is almost like it's just the beginning part. Then after the book is published, you're in that phase right now where you're actually promoting the book and you're building your community and you're going to determine what is the next step. Like what would be a dream vision or a goal after you've written the book? Now that the book is out, what do you hope happened? I know legacy is important and your grandkids will be reading the book, but knowing you, there's probably an even to infinity and beyond. Your Buzz Lightyear. So what does your and beyond look like?
Well, I think that be like you, buddy. I mean, I'm looking at what you're doing. You're changing lives. You're inspiring people. You have a much broader reach. I've been a small community guy. I've been a brick and mortar guy. Like all of my business activity has been inside my community of 300,000 people. I've never really reached out. Now to discover that I can have a book. I'm having friends in Italy read it. I'm having friends all over the world look at this book. And I think I would like to be able to help people through my knowledge, help business people that are in a brick and mortar business that I have experience in. I don't have experience in electronic media, but I do have experience in running a business in a community and making a life that's so full. And so I can't go anywhere in my community where I'm not meeting people that I've done service for, business for over the years, and being a part of that community and building that has been a wonderful experience for me. And I think that a lot of people that are in business don't understand that they have a vehicle that they can really be involved in the community in a much bigger way than they may be caught in the day-to-day operations of their business. And right. I think that helping people in that regard was something that if I could do that, knit people back together more, it'd be great.
Well, you don't have to go very far to know that technology is and artificial intelligence is a huge bump to what's going on in today's world. You just look at the S&P and you see companies like NVIDIA and Alphabet and Apple and Amazon and all of the Amazon's products aren't necessarily just their products. They're the data management aspect of Amazon as well. Guys, your age, my age, we started before computers were even around, and we're kind of adapting to, we weren't born with an iPad in our hand like your grandkids are, or my kids are dealing with now. How do you find that you will situate yourself in the business life tomorrow with technology? Well, you're doing it now. You're on a podcast. You're dealing with, Zoom and other technologies that you didn't really have at your fingertips when you were going through your college days. How will you adapt in this world of, especially in the human world with all of this technology going on?
You know what? I think it's the curiosity that I have and the interest of it. And it's the real world. It's what it is. It's not going to go backwards. So either you adapt to it or you basically pigeonhole yourself into a bygone era. And I myself am so fascinated with this whole process of where technology is taking the world just in general and connect everybody. I am so excited about the future, about what technology is going to bring to our lives. I think the AI thing, I've been using AI a little bit, just asking questions and looking through it. It just blows my mind.
Does any of this scare you?
What that technology is, it's just absolutely amazing. Now, what it takes to actually do that, what the software is, and all of that, it's mind-boggling to even have a little section of this. So I have 4 daughters, as I told you. What my first daughter, she decides, hey, I want to be a hairdresser. Mm-hmm. Well, look, honey, that's great. Go to college, get your degree. If you still want to be a hairdresser, would be more than happy to support that. She goes to college, gets her degree. What do you want to be? I want to be a hairdresser. Goes to beauty school, gets that. The next daughter goes to the University of Oregon, and then she get hired at Google. So I'm involved in the Google thing now. I don't know anything about Google, but now I'm learning about Google. So she becomes an executive. She works her way up to where she's executive assistant to one of the 13 vice presidents of Google.
Wow.
So she is like interconnected in that world. She gets headhunted, and now she is one of the top executive assistants to one of the vice presidents at OpenAI.
Got it.
So my life is getting little bits and pieces about what's coming in the world of AI. Gosh. Okay. Then I have another daughter that actually got hired by Google, and she's the executive assistant, which is the craziest thing, of the guy that's in charge of all of the Hollywood connections and entertainment for Google.
Nice.
So I'm getting this peripheral feedback that they tell me. They throw me little bones of information here and there, of what's going on or what's coming about. But I think that it's a so exciting time to live for everybody, that this journey that we're on, we're all going on together, and it's completely uncharted territory.
All right. So just because I'm a proud dad of 2 kids, and I talk about my kids on our Friday episodes quite a bit. My daughter.
I'm sorry
Rachel,
that I got
son.
off on that. I apologize.
No, you did good. You have a 4th kid. You didn't mention the 4th.
I have 4. Yeah, I have 4 daughters.
Got to mention the 4th one now.
4 daughters. Yeah. So the 3rd daughter is not working. She married into a family here in the Central Valley that is big ag. We're talking big agricultural
all right, so
community.
They growing grapes? They're growing wine?
They're growing everything.
That's great.
They farm tomatoes, thousands of acres of tomatoes. They start harvesting tomatoes in August. They run 24 hours a day harvesting tomatoes, and they just finished last week.
Oh my gosh. And it's
That's
October.
one crop. They harvest watermelons. You'll be eating their watermelons on the East Coast. They have melons, honeydew melons, all of this. So she marries into this large farming family. And that brings me to my restaurant that I just got through completing in Patterson, California, from the patriarch of that family, 85-year-old farmer, very successful, goes, Bob, I want to build a legacy restaurant for my community.
Yeah.
So for the last 2 years, we've built this beautiful piece of furniture with the shop, with everything, and we built this restaurant. And then through that restaurant, when my other restaurant was purchased by the Mormon Church, which is another whole story, that restaurant was physically picked up because of the unique design and everything that I put inside of it by a billionaire corporation out of the UK, and we are now reconstructing and building a new restaurant where we're taking the old restaurant and installing that into a new building to get a melding of the old restaurant and the new building. And this is all being paid for by a $1 billion corporation, and they're letting me walk around with like flamingo slippers telling him what I want him to do. So it's great.
Sounds like a good life. And Bob, I want to ask you this. Would you be open to having a follow-up conversation once my community digs into your book and we get some questions coming in and you have an opportunity to let it marinate out there in the world? I'd love to have you back.
Number one, I'd be honored for that. Number two, I don't even know what's going on right now with relationship to your community and all of that. Why don't you kind of share with me just a minute of how many people will hear this podcast? I'm curious to that, approximately. Yeah. How many people do you think will actually, at your rough estimation, say if there's 1,000 people, will 3 people buy the book or look into it or whatever? And I would just love to get that feedback and have that follow-up conversation. I'd be honored to do that.
Sure. Well, just to give you a thumbnail sketch of what's going on, we've been doing the Nice Guys on Business. We started in February of 2015. So as of the recording of this, we're about 10 plus years into it, almost 1,700 episodes in. Somewhere in the area of 6 million people through the years have listened to our podcast. So we feel like we've had a really good impact on the world. We primarily deal with the entrepreneurial community, those that have a side hustle, those that are in corporate world thinking about doing their own thing, those that are doing their own thing right now. We have a lot of people that I would say are fit into the category like I am as a podcast listener. I've listened to many shows for many years. I've never reached out to most of the hosts of the show. So we don't really have a lot of people that reach out and say, "Hey, Doug, this is what we want." But we do know that we move the needle with many of our interesting guests that have products that they're selling and want to make an impact in the world. The closer that we can get to figuring out what that, let's call it the call to action, and I think we shared this when we were doing our preliminary call, the better you are at saying what your call to action is, and we've mentioned your book many times on the show today, Nice Guy Community, will make sure we put a link in the show notes for Bob's book, of course. The best thing to do if you're listening to this podcast episode, and I'll tell you this, Bob, and I'll tell this to my community as well, is go buy the book. Get the book so Bob can see that we actually can engage our audience, even though you aren't very vocal audience members, community. You are action takers. That's what entrepreneurs do. So go out and buy Bob's book. You'll figure out his life story, the lessons that he has learned, and his lessons along the way that could help you with the lessons that you're enjoying and going through as a part of your journey in our community as well. So that's just a really very high. That
was an awesome call to action, Doug. I really appreciate that. That was like, it was almost as good as like a well-polished Sunday preacher asking for money. I loved it.
Well, what we need to do is we need to get, anytime we have a guest on the show, I always say, what would be a win? Some people say a win would be somebody hire me to do a speaking gig. And I was like, okay, great. But the challenge is that now you're asking somebody to pay $25,000 to have you do a keynote in their organization, from going from not knowing who you were to buying you to come in and do a keynote. When you're selling a book, what an easy risk-free opportunity for you to see what is going on in Bob's life.
So if we circle back to your question as to what would I like the outcome to be?
Yeah.
If I could make a impactful, helpful advisory role to some young entrepreneurs, or to that corporate guy that wants to go out into his own, or to somebody that's facing some challenges in their business, or when they're growing it in a brick and mortar situation, I would be honored to be able to know that I made an impact to that person and to be able to make them. And if you were able to put me in contact with that person and I was able to help them in some regard to make their life smoother and have a richer and fuller life, then I figure that would be so successful for me. All right.
Well, that's done. The reason that's done is because you're talking to that guy right now. I'm going to be the one picking up a phone and saying to you, "Hey, Bob, you're 10 years advanced in your career from where I am right now. What's my next step? What do I need to do?" So, if nothing else, I hope you don't mind, Bob. I'm going to pick your brain on that.
Doug, I would love it. I mean, this is the juice that makes me give back, and the selflessness of it's kind of like I've been watching a lot of this, like I want to do a big podcast, I want to get into this world, and the total information that they give out is tell them everything, make a video, tell them the whole story, tell them every single amount of information. And I completely agree with that, because the thing is that I could tell you everything in the world that I know about everything, but for you and I to have a conversation of your specific situation at your specific time in life, I can't do that. I have to basically meet you, talk with you, have a conversation, and then you and I can come to it's so often that you go on this journey. When do you able to talk to people that have walked your walk or have gone with you, and you can have that one-on-one conversation of valuable, because it's a slow journey being an entrepreneur. It's like it's a lonely way. You don't have everybody, and most people don't understand anywhere near the problems or anywhere near the challenges that you face on a daily basis. They don't relate to it because they're not going on that walk.
Well, selfishly, I actually started the podcast not only as the promotional resource outlet for my book that I had written back in 2015, but almost as, or maybe even more so, because I didn't realize all of the coaching that I was going to get. I mean, we've had Ariana Huffington, John C. Maxwell. We've had Gittimer on several times. I've had, the guy, Sean D. Nelson of Lovesac, who created $1 billion organization, Grant Cardone. I just think about all of these people that I'd have to pay tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to give me coaching advice for, that volunteer. They actually reach out and say, "Hey, Doug, I want to be on your show." So for me, podcasting, if nothing else, I mean, I love talking to the normal folks that have success and challenges in their life. They're the ones that help me through this. Had I found nothing else from my podcast, never sold one thing through it, what I do get from it selfishly is all of these kind of great conversations like I'm having with you, Bob, because this is the best part about it.
And I think the podcast vehicle, I would be honest with you, I really don't usually sit down around my dinner table and have this kind of conversation with another person.
Agreed.
And the podcast vehicle enables us to be able to talk about a subject or something that's dear to both of us, but in a sincere way that is open. And that vehicle has not been available until as most recently. So I've got my podcast studio. You're sitting here seeing me.
It's amazing.
I built this podcast studio, and now I'm going to basically go on this adventure. I'm going to be, I don't know, am I a competitor of yours if I do a podcast on the human connection?
No, that's like saying to me, "Hey, look, I watch these 5 shows on Netflix. There's a 7th and 8th and 9th and 10th show on Netflix. Are they my competition?" No, if the people that listen to podcasts, they fucking listen to podcasts. The more they love. I've
just started listening to it more and more and more, and the whole world of YouTube, like doing this whole YouTube thing. Initially, when I started doing the YouTube, you watch it, it's just like, look what I'm doing, this kind of thing, and it's just kind of like superficial kind of stuff. But as I learn more and more, and as you can see, my videos are progressing, I'm learning more about storytelling. I'm learning more about sharing what my inner thoughts are on why I'm doing a particular thing, on how I'm creating a particular piece in the shop, or what I'm basically doing, and being able to share that and crafting the ability through the book, which was the first example of how am I going to tell this story?
Yeah.
And then to basically start taking video or a podcast and craft the skill of storytelling is a lifelong journey. And I just find it so fascinating. And when I listen, this is an attaboy to you, but you make it look so easy to convey a conversation and to keep a conversation flowing and so forth. And from 1,700 podcasts, you've owned that skill to a seamless.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
A seamless, enjoyable experience.
Thanks.
And
I love doing it.
And it shows, though. It shows that you love doing it. Your demeanor, the way that you go about interviewing me, the way you go about it. I'm honored that you're willing to have a follow-up call with me. I'm honored that you're basically making my call to action for me myself. And I'm learning about this world, and I'm going to continue to learn on it. So any way that I can hitch my wagon to Dougie over here, I'm doing it.
Hey, my pleasure. I would be more than happy to show you some of or talk to you and your team. And by the way, your team, Mark, on your team did a great job, not only in the prep call that we had, but props to Mark for setting up your audio so it sounds great, your studio so that it looks great. all of those things that we have on a daily basis. I mean, while yes, I did set up my studio, all of the stuff behind the scenes, the editing, the distribution, the social media collateral, the posting to the hosting source, the blog posts that are going to come as a result of it, all of that stuff, I don't do any of that. I have an amazing team that takes care of all of that, as I know that you have in Mark in your studio that
I
does
have
that
Mark,
too.
I have Joaquin, and then I have my whole restaurant team. See, the Michael Gerber advice was to work on the business and not in the business was a seminal moment for me. When I understood that role of stepping back instead of being the guy that's driving the truck, instead of being the guy with the shovel. And that was what I related to work. I related, if I'm physically doing something, I'm working, and then I'm leading through example and all of that. I spent many years in that role. But once I learned that working on the business instead of working in the business, that's when the creativity came about. And that's when the business exponentially started to grow. But it was a real big risk because it's like I'm every other alpha male. If I'm not doing it, it's not right. So the thing is that I've got to basically be involved in that. But then, like you said, you put your team together, you start learning how to build your team, you start learning how to form relationships, you start learning how to motivate those individuals to bring the best out of them going forward. That's so fulfilling as well, because I'm sure you are so proud of your team that they make your life so much higher quality than if you had to do all that stuff.
It's 100% correct, and it's also what you said was my exact question beyond, and we'll talk about this outside of the recording too, and then we'll bring this conversation back into the recording once we create me as a case study for you. My whole thing is, how do I? Yes, I do delegate the majority of the responsibilities, but how do I get even further into the on the business as opposed to in the business? That is exactly what I need. That's why I look to guys that have done that are well, not just age wise, because you could have somebody that's 35 that's down the path much further than me in success. My question would be the same. Teach me how to do what I am doing on the business as opposed to in the business, because I still find I'm too much in it.
You want a quick story on that?
Okay, yeah, let's do it before we wrap up.
Okay, so I don't know if I mentioned this other book. So we talked about the E-Myth. We're talking about Michael Gerber. We're talking about all of the different individuals that Tommy Hopkins and Gitmer and all those guys.
Right.
There was a guy that wrote this book, and I don't know about you, but a buddy of mine reads 50 books a year. I'm probably in the like 15 to 20 book a year category. I don't know.
Close. Yeah, nowhere close.
And I'm constantly seeking out. And if I get one little nugget out of one book, I'm happy I read the damn book. I'm happy I read it. So on working on the business, working in the business, the transition that you're going to have a very big difficulty with is exactly what you're saying. It's easier for you to go into your software, make a change, make a connection, do that, and move on than to explain to somebody else to do it.
Yes.
I mean, at a certain point. But you have to basically be willing to sacrifice that frustration of watching them take 15 minutes to do something that you could do in 1 minute until they master that skill.
Correct.
And that is hard. Because that 15 minutes, by the way, is costing you money.
Yeah.
You're having to pay that, for their education.
Well, you never get to the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week unless you really do teach the people, and then let them screw up. Let them screw up. That's the best.
That's what. So this book that I wanted to reference, because I almost lost my train of thought. It was this guy named Jan Carlson, and he took over Scandinavian Air System, which was a state-owned carrier out of Sweden, I think it was, and they were losing like $70 million a year in this book. And the Scandinavian Air System hire this guy, and in like 24 months or something, he turned to $17 million profit. They go, "What the F did you do?" So the Harvard Business Review, I used to get those Sound View business summaries. Yeah. Do you ever take those?
No, but go ahead.
It might be something you might want to look into, because you can take a book and you can like 4 pages and you read the book. It's like a summary of it. Right. So I'd read these summaries and then I read his book. He basically boiled down a business transaction to 2 functions. He called them memory moments and moments of truth. And the memory moments was any time that a business transaction, a customer had an opportunity to judge the performance of the business. What does that mean? Okay, so let's say you're going to buy milk. You go into the grocery store, they strategically put the milk at the very far corner of the store, so you have to walk by all the product to get the milk and come back, and you buy the milk. If the milk was cold, if it was the right price, it's kind of like a neutral thing. It was like I bought the milk.
Right.
Now, a negative thing would have been you got home, you opened it up, and the milk was sour.
Right.
That would have been bad. Or you went there and they're checking you out. And you go, oh, I just forgot to tell you, bag boy, go get them another quart of milk. We have a sale now, and if you bought this particular one, you get two. Then that's a major positive outcome of that memory moment.
Right.
So now you're home, and your wife says, "Did you get the milk?" Well, yeah, I got the milk, and I got to tell you, I went down there, and they brought me another thing of milk out, and I wasn't even aware of it. It was on sale. That's the moment of truth. We're only shopping at that store now because they really took care of us.
Right.
So he would manage these memory moments to a point to where in a pool transaction, I broke it down to where I had 50 to 70 memory moments per pool construction. I managed those memory moments for positive outcomes. That was what I was doing, is working on the business. So as an example, my truck shows up at a job site. Well, what does that look like? Do they put cones out for safety?
Yeah.
Do they put like a tarp out in case they're going to make a mess in the back? What do the neighbors see when they drive by, how that looks? So I'm nonverbal communication, orchestrating a memory moment. The customer comes home. They see that their property is respected. They remember that. Now the pool's built. I've done that 70 different times. It could be all different things.
Right.
In the construction.
It's called the customer experience now.
The customer experience, if they call it that. Now the customer has their product. The reason they bought it was to have barbecues and friends and family and birthday parties. Now the birthday party's going on. There's 3 or 4 guys over having beer by the grill. They're grilling sausages. And one of the guys goes, Joe, our family's been thinking about building a pool back here like this one. Who did you hire to do it? And would you hire him again? That was the moment of truth. Yeah. Now, what the customer would do, they would review the 70 memory moments in
That's
their
all
brain,
they're thinking about.
And whatever was negative, they spew it out. There was a crack in my concrete. There was a this, or was that. There's always going to be a problem, or maybe not always, but there's going to be a problem. They highlight the negativity, and then if that's followed by, but I told them about it, they came out and fixed it, hire them, they do what they say. If there's a problem, they're going to take care of it. That was the moment of truth. And then you become an order taker besides a salesperson.
Well, that's the best part. When you can become an order taker because you've created these memories for your clients, as opposed to having to sell somebody. I always tell my team, like, look, mistakes are bound to happen. It's what happens next that really counts.
That's so true.
How do you handle the mistake?
And then when the customer can tell that story, it basically reflects on them. Look how smart I was to pick them to do my job. And then you should be that smart to hire them too. So it's almost kind of like a really weird kind of ecosystem that you could create. And all of it, the outcome is you feel good about yourself and they feel good about you at the same time. So that human connection is fostered and grows. And they want to share that human connection with their friends so that they can show that they help them in the path of having a less stressful life.
Nice Guy community, you can see why I invited Bob on the show. We had an initial great conversation in the preliminary phase. I got to meet Bob along with one of my team members, got to meet Bob as well. And we invited him on the show, not only because we thought that his message would really have a deep impact on you, but selfishly, again, I invited him on the show because I knew it was going to have a deep impact on me. So Thank you so much for checking out Bob and everything that he's got. I'm going to remind you that I'm putting a link in the show notes for a few things. One, his website, bobcampana.com, so you can go there and check out all of what Bob does. Right on the homepage, you'll see access to his book. That'll take you to a link in Amazon. So just go ahead and buy the book. Do that. When you get a moment, we'll also put a link in the show notes for Bob's YouTube channel and for his LinkedIn profile as well. If you're one of those entrepreneurs trying to figure out what is the next step for you, definitely connect with Bob. Follow some of his posts. Follow some of the comments that he's making on other people's posts as well, and check him out because he is everything that I think that he is, and then some. I really loved having him on the show. Bob, I can't thank you enough for sharing your wisdom and your inspiration with our community today. This was really a great conversation.
You know, that last little part, can I get that on like a zip drive that I could send to my wife? I mean, that would be really good. I don't think she feels that same way, but it'd be awesome. I could show her other people do.
I could do it as a guy that is a terrific husband and father. I could have the same slant, but just using the personal side as opposed to using the
perfect.
side of you
We
as an
can
author.
talk about that off air too, Doug. I love it.
Thanks for being here, Bob. Thanks.
And I want to thank you. I want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody in your organization for making my life so much easier on this initial podcast journey that I'm on. So thank you, Doug, as well. I'm honored.
My pleasure. Nice Guy community. Never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Bob. All of his information and access to his book and his website right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
Click on the Patreon link in the show notes. And for as little as $2 a month, you can help support the podcast and get access to fun bonus content. That's like half a cup of Starbucks coffee once a month, a grande, double shot, maybe a little flavoring. Thanks for listening. I mean, seriously, you need to cut back on your caffeine anyway.